What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and today we're talking some puck, we're talking some Flyers hockey. It's a good day to be a Flyers fan, a good day to be a fan of the National Hockey League. But before we get into any of the Flyers news that's revolving around today, let's talk about what's happened in the past week with the NHL. So we all know that the CBA was finally extended another 4 years till 2026, as it was set to expire in 2022. And there's a few incentives that go along with this CBA extension. So we know in 2018, NHL players were not allowed to participate in the Winter Olympics. So now in 2022 and 2026, players will now be able to participate, represent their countries, and battle for that gold medal. So that's nice to see right there. And there's a few money incentives that go along with this CBA extension as well. So league minimum, I think, was raised to $750K. And rookies that are coming in on their entry-level contract, they are now able to make more money than the previous entry-level contracts that were set before. And there's still problems with the escrow situation going on right there, but it's still nice to see that the players and the NHL were managed to get an extension going on, so we don't have to worry about a lockout in the next few years or so. And another bad thing with this extension right here is that the salary cap at the current $81.5 million, that's going to be the salary cap for the next few seasons. So a lot of teams that are tight on cap space, i.e. the Philadelphia Flyers that come to mind, Toronto Maple Leafs, Vegas Golden Knights, teams are going to have to figure out how to work around that tight cap space right there and figure out ways to build their roster better, like the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're studded forward core, and they're not known for having a very good defensive core. So that's their biggest gripe. They need to find a way to build their defensive core now with such tight cap space. So that's going to be the problem for everyone, I would say, going into this tight salary cap for the next few seasons. So when the CBA was extended upon, the NHL finally revealed the exact dates for Phase 3 and the Phase 4 start times. So Phase 3, like I said today, it starts today, July 13th. That's with training camps. And roster sizes for training camps, you can have 30 skaters with unlimited goaltenders. And for Phase 4, your roster size has to be 31 players. That's including the goaltenders. So there's going to be some roster cuts made in the coming time before teams travel to the hub cities. So on July 26th, that's when the teams are going to travel to the two hub cities. So for the Eastern Conference, you're going to travel to Toronto. And for the Western Conference, they're going to travel to Edmonton. And then between July 26th and July 30th, that's when the exhibition games are going to be played, so teams can get into game shape, get back into hockey shape. And then on August 1st, that is the official start date for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the qualifying rounds, they are officially a part of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The stats are going to carry over into the 16-team tournament. And also between August 1st and the 9th, that is when the round-robin tournament is going to be played. So in regards to the Flyers, they play in the round-robin tournament between Boston, Washington, and Tampa Bay. So they're the top 4 seeds in the conference, and they'll play the round robin to determine what seed is going to be what. So the Flyers, on August 2nd, they will play the Boston Bruins, and then they'll have 3 days off. August 6th, they'll play the Washington Capitals, then they'll have 2 days off, and then the final day of the qualifying rounds and the round robin tournament, they will play the Tampa Bay Lightning on August 9th. So let's go into the other dates. So on August 10th, that is going to be Phase 2 of the NHL Draft Lottery. So as we know, a qualifying team won the draft lottery, so the Phase 2 is basically going to decide which qualifying team got that first overall pick. So that's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a very fun day to see which fan base gets mad. And there's going to be a lot of fan bases that get very angry watching a playoff team win the first overall pick at this point, so that's going to be a very fun day to watch. So on August 11th, after the second phase of the draft lottery, that is when the 16-team tournament begins. That's the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then on August 25th, that'll be when the second round begins. September 8th, that's when the conference finals begin. Then the September 22nd, that's when the Stanley Cup finals begins. And the last possible day for the Stanley Cup final is going to be on October 4th. And then a few days after that, October 9th and 10th, that is going to be the 2020 NHL Draft. So those are the dates that are from the NHL. That's their dates for Phase 3 and Phase 4. So it's a good time right there. We know the dates. We know when the teams are going to play. So that's going to be very good right there. So let's continue on to the Flyers standpoint today. So the rosters were revealed for Phase 3. And looking at the roster right now, I don't expect that many players to be cut, actually. going to the hub cities, I probably expect like some of the lesser guys to be played, like players that really haven't had that much of a sample size this season with the team. So players like Andy Andreoff, Nate Prosser, Tyler Wotherspoon, Andy Walensky, I expect those guys to get cut. And looking at the defensive core, the two extras, I can see Mark Friedman, who was just extended to a 2-year contract. 2-year one way, he's making $750K for these 2 seasons. So it's a nice extension right there for them. And I do expect the extra defenseman along with Friedman to be Yegor Zamula, one of the Flyers' top defensive prospects. And he's a little interesting to me because he's just coming off back surgery that shortened his season with the Calgary Hitmen in the WHL. So that could be interesting right there. Maybe Zamula will be one of those extra guys going into Toronto for the hub city. So that'll be nice to see right there. I really don't expect many forwards to get cut because a lot of the forwards that the Flyers chose for this training camp, a lot of those players have had a lot of games this year with the Flyers. Players like Carson Twarynski, Connor Bunneman, Morgan Frost, German Rupstov. Those players have had games this year with the Flyers. And I honestly don't expect much of them to be cut. And in regards to the goaltenders, I expect the Flyers to bring all 4 goaltenders just because I'm going to knock on wood right there for injury reasons. So Carter Hart is going to be the guy. Brian Elliott is going to be his backup. And then Alex Lyon, Kirill Ustimenko, those guys are going to be in the background just hopefully, like I get knock on wood, for injury purposes. So I don't want to jinx anything right there. So definitely those 2 guys are going to be there for injury-related issues. And one of the players that's not on the roster, which a lot of people are arguing about right now, is Nolan Patrick. He is one of the guys that's being talked about a lot right now just because he's not on the roster, and it's basically a mixed match of arguments going on social media, and I want to give my 2 insights about it. So there's a lot of people calling Nolan Patrick a bust right now just because he's not on the roster, and there's people trying to defend Nolan Patrick. It's a whole mess. It's a whole mess going on right now, and it's tough to see just because Patrick, he's had so much expectations from a lot of people around the NHL just because he was a 2nd overall pick, and going into that 2017 draft, he was expected to go number 1 for a long time. Then because of the injury in his draft year, that's why he dropped to number 2. And still, being a 2nd overall pick, there's a lot of expectations for you. You expect to be an elite player in this league. And Patrick just has had a ton of rotten luck in his first 3 seasons in the National Hockey League. His first season, he got injured. He wasn't off that big of a start. His second season, he was injured. And then now his third season, he wasn't even able to play because of his migraine issue. So he's just had a lot of bad luck. But when Nolan Patrick was on the ice and he was very consistent, he looked like a really, really good player. And I feel like that's what a lot of people don't see. They just see like, oh, he's injured a lot. He doesn't play that many games. He doesn't get that many points. He's a bust automatically. So I don't agree with that. I feel like that's unfair to a player like Nolan Patrick just because he's had so much rotten luck. And I feel like just not putting him on the roster for this, it's the best decision for the Flyers and for Nolan Patrick. Chuck Fletcher has stated that himself. He wants to focus on getting Patrick ready for next season, and it's better. I'd rather have Patrick ready for a long-term career rather than possibly his career getting shortened by playing in the playoffs, which is going to be hard-hitting. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be hard-hitting, and it's going to be hard for a guy that's just coming back off of an injury, specifically with a migraine issue. So you don't want to make that any worse than it is. And Patrick has told Fletcher that he's been feeling the best that he has in the past 12 months. So Fletcher just has to believe what Patrick is saying, and he has to go by that. But the main reason for Patrick not being on this roster, it's more of a reason for him to get ready for 2020, 2021. So that's for the process for Patrick right now. Getting ready, getting healthy for next season. Do not worry about for the playoffs. Make sure you're ready for the next following season. And that's what's most important for Patrick. And like what I said, people are just calling him bust. He's not a bust. And the people that want to use the argument, oh, the Flyers could have drafted a guy like Cale Makar or Elias Pettersson. One, Patrick going into his draft was expected to be number 1. He fell back to number 2 because Nico Hischier came on the spot. So the Devils took Hischier. The Flyers took the next best player available in Patrick. And then you use the argument for Cale Makar. Flyers took the next best player available in Patrick. He was ranked number 1. He dropped to number 2. That's just what happens. And for people that's saying, why didn't the Flyers draft Pettersson? Pettersson was expected to go in the late rounds, in the late stages of the first round. Vancouver took a risk, and they drafted Pettersson that high. And for them, it worked out. For their benefit, it worked out that Pettersson became a star in this league. It's just, he wasn't expected to go that high. Vancouver took a risk. Ron Hextall at that point, he was taking the next best player available, and that was Nolan Patrick. And sadly for Patrick, he just hit a ton of rotten luck in the NHL just due to injury. And that's what people are going to label him through his first 2 seasons, is that he's injury prone, he's a bust, he's not going to do anything in this league. And it's very unfair to him. That is very unfair to a player like Nolan Patrick. And like I said, I'd rather him have a longer career than having something happen during the playoffs. I feel like that's what's most important here. Making sure that he's more healthy going into next season. Having him not worry about the playoffs, that's the most important thing right here. And the Flyers right now, they're focusing on winning a cup right now. The team believes that they can go out there and do it. And me, myself, I feel like this team is different. I know that's biased, that's blind optimism, but this team this season is different. And a lot of people will agree with me on that. This team is different. They played a lot different this season. The roster, they look like they're one big family. They want to play for each other. They want to play for Alain Vigneault and that coaching staff. They want to play for Chuck Fletcher. They're all in right now. They're all in. They want to go out there and prove that they can win a cup. So, like I said, this team is different. I feel like this team can go out there and do something. Now, a lot of people around the city of Philadelphia agree with the same thing. There's something special about this Flyers team. And like I said, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx anything right now, because no, I'm saying this right now, I'm going to jinx something. So knock on wood hopefully helps me with that. So what are your thoughts about the Flyers roster right now? Who do you think they're going to cut? And what are your thoughts on the Nolan Patrick situation? Do you think he's a bust? Do you think people are wrong for calling him a bust? Like, what are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on the current CBA extension that was last week, what they just did? So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next time.